Heat waves shimmer over the salt flats. The sun hammers down on the Iranian plateau at 50 degrees Celsius. Outside, the desert is a furnace where the air itself feels like a physical weight. Yet, inside the mud brick corridors of Yazd, the air is moving. It is fresh, and it is remarkably cool. This was not achieved by modern machinery. It was achieved by an understanding of fluid dynamics and thermal mass that has kept people alive in the heart of the desert for over a millennium. Between the 9th century and the present day, Persian architects perfected soaring structures called Badgirs, or wind towers, atop houses, reservoirs, and mosques across the arid regions of Iran. These towers stretch anywhere from 5 to 30 meters into the sky, their height reflecting the need to reach the stronger, the cleaner winds that circulate far above the dust-laden ground. But despite the variance in height, the internal geometry of these towers remained remarkably consistent, utilizing precise vertical shafts regardless of the building's prestige. This was not arbitrary. The internal configuration determined cooling performance. A specific shaft width ensured that the air could be accelerated and directed downward without losing its velocity. It also ensured that the thermal exchange between the air and the masonry walls happened at a controlled rate. Height could be adjusted for status and wind access, but the internal logic was fixed by the physics of pressure and convection. Persian builders had no formal training in modern thermodynamics, yet they standardized the one architectural feature that mattered most for survival in a world of fire. Yet the wind tower functioned as a complete survival system. It was not simply an ornament. It was a machine designed to capture, accelerate, and cool the desert's breath using only mud, brick, clay, and the law of physics. The first challenge was the envelope. In a climate where the sun can bake the earth to the hardness of stone, the exterior walls had to resist the relentless penetration of heat. Persian builders adapted their materials to the resources of the desert. In an environment where timber was a luxury, walls were constructed from sun-dried mud bricks, or kest. These bricks were often treated with a mixture of clay and straw, creating a thick, porous skin. This made the structure resistant to the intense UV radiation, which was the great enemy of desert architecture. Direct sunlight accelerated the heating of the interior, but mud brick provided what engineers call thermal inertia. Dampness was rare, but the dry heat was constant. Mud brick acts as a thermal dam. It absorbs the sun's energy during the day, but because of its density and thickness, the heat moves through the wall so slowly that it only reaches the interior after the sun has set and the outside air has cooled. In the desert, this thermal buffer was essential. Without it, the interior would have become a kiln by midday. The roof added another layer of defense. Unlike the flat roofs of temperate zones, Persian roofs were often domed. A dome increases the surface area for heat dissipation and ensures that, at any given time, part of the roof is always in the shadow of itself. This massive earthen shell was the first line of defense, but it was only the beginning. Inside the desert home, the floor was often set below ground level to take advantage of the earth's natural coolness. Rising from the roofline was the Badgir. This was the heart of the cooling system, both literally and functionally. The tower was not a chimney for smoke, but a lung for the house. It was built with internal partitions, dividing the tower into 4 or 8 separate shafts. During the day, the tower operated on the principle of pressure differentials. As wind struck one side of the tower, it created a high-pressure zone, forcing the air down the shaft. On the leeward side, the vacuum created a low-pressure zone, sucking the warm air out from the house. Brick has high thermal mass. During the night, The tower walls released their stored heat to the cool night sky. By morning, the bricks were cold. As the hot midday wind entered the tower, it was forced against these cold bricks. The air transferred its heat to the masonry, dropping in temperature before it ever reached the inhabitants below. The bricks became, in effect, a thermal battery for cold. In more sophisticated setups, the air was not just cooled, it was humidified. Many wind towers were built directly over a qanat, an ancient underground canal carrying mountain snowmelt. As the hot air was forced down into the subterranean chamber, it passed over the cold, flowing water. Through evaporative cooling, the air's temperature plummeted while its humidity rose. This cooled air, now denser and heavier, would then flow upward into the living quarters, pushed by the constant pressure from the tower above. Archaeological evidence and thermal mapping support this. Or the interior of these homes could remain 15 degrees cooler than the street outside. The system was efficient because it decoupled the harsh exterior environment from the interior microclimate. But air alone could not solve the problem. The system also had to manage dust. The height of the tower was the first filter, reaching above the low-lying silt kicked up by caravans. The internal shafts often had small traps where remaining sand would settle before the air entered the rooms. This was controlled convection. The Persians managed airflow with precision, utilizing the buoyancy of air to create a constant, passive cycle. The lower zones where the family rested during the heat of the day remained refreshed. The upper zones where heat naturally accumulated were constantly purged by the low-pressure draw of the tower. This is advanced fluid management achieved without a single moving part. The system relied entirely on passive physics, on temperature differentials, and strategic orientation toward the Kavir winds. However, the Persian home was not just a matter of architecture. It was also biology. During the hottest months, the lifestyle of the family shifted vertically. The Zia-Zamin, or basement, was the biological refuge. By moving their activities underground, humans integrated their own metabolic needs with the thermal stability of the earth. Just as Vikings moved toward the fire, Persians moved toward the soil. They were incorporating the earth's constant temperature into the daily thermal budget. Every degree of cooling mattered, and none was wasted. The system worked. Their families survived summers that would have been lethal without these innovations. But survival came with a cost. The trade-off was maintenance. In a landscape of sandstorms, the towers and underground canals required constant cleaning. A blocked qanat, or a silted tower, meant the end of the cooling loop. The inhabitants had to be as disciplined as the architecture. This was the survival paradox. The same system that provided life-saving coolness also required a lifelong commitment to the desert's harsh maintenance. The wind tower was more than a thermal machine. It was the axis of social life. Under the tower, in the telar, or central hall, the family gathered to escape the sun. The sound of the wind moving through the shafts was the background noise of Persian civilization. The Badgir held symbolic weight. It marked the boundary between the chaos of the desert and the order of the home. Light, coolness, and community existed on one side. Heat, dust, and isolation existed on the other. The tower was passed down through generations. When a family built a home, the tower was the first sign of permanence, an anchor in a shifting landscape of dunes. This pattern is not unique to Persia. Passive cooling and thermal mass appear in hot climate cultures around the world, among the Pueblo tribes of the Americas and the courtyard houses of North Africa. The convergence is not coincidental. It reflects a universal solution to a universal problem: how to survive the sun with limited resources. The Persians built their towers without blueprints, through iteration and the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 years. They understood that wind can be harnessed, that mud can block the sun, and that water can transform a furnace into an oasis. The wind tower was a synthesis of solutions. The mud brick envelope provided thermal inertia. The Badgir converted wind into a pressurized cooling stream. The Qanat provided geothermal stability and humidity. Each element reinforced the others. Remove one, and the system would fail. This is holistic design. The Badgir stands as a testament to what humans are capable of when survival depends on it. They did not conquer the desert. They accommodated it. They created spaces where families could thrive, generation after generation, in a landscape that offered no margin for error. It was engineering in its most essential form, the application of knowledge to meet the demands of survival. As the wind still blows across the ruins of the Silk Road, the mud may crumble, the canals may dry, but the logic remains. In the face of an environment that showed no mercy, humans built a structure that provided them with a breath of cold air. The wind tower worked, and that is everything.